What?
Subscribe.
Subscribe. We'll highlight all that. Don't you worry.
Just
But of
saying,
course,
you gotta remind people. You want to get
Subscribe right now.
subscribe.
subscribe. Of course.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Hello, welcome. Wow, my whole thing just went really loud. Hello, and welcome in to Get in the Hole. Ben Pirro, Steve McAvoy, streaming here on a Monday from the Underground on Underground Sports Philadelphia, your go-to network for all things Philadelphia sports and beyond. Once again, Ben Pirro, I'm Steve McAvoy. We are streaming live here in the Underground on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you can get a hold of us, including our friends over at YouTube. Bringing you all the news, golf analysis, and betting tips from across the PGA Tour, LPGA, LIVGolf, and more. Brought to you today and every day by some of the best sponsors in the biz, as my golf bag goes absolutely haywire, jumping around during my house is shaking. Brought to you by Tomahawk Shades, the best small batch eyewear brand in the industry, as one of the leaders in not only eyewear, but also now apparel, and sponsored and rep by some of the biggest names in the sports world. You've seen their branding all over John Jay, Danny Descalso, Chris Hogan, Kyle Harrison, and of course, golf's very own Paige Sporadic. And you could join in on the action as well and go to tomahawkshades.com or the Tomahawk Shades app to find yourself some of the best prescription regular branded glasses, as well as snow goggles, blue light glasses, whatever you need. Tomahawk Shades has you covered. And be sure to use code USP for 25% off your next order at tomahawkshades.com. Ben Pirro, let's get right into the good stuff this week. The Sanderson Farms Championship was nothing more than spectacular in more ways than one. I almost speaked a Keith Mitchell victory into existence, and he blew it. He blew it away.
Spoke.
What did I say?
Speaked.
Speaked.
Like what, dude? Come on.
Wow.
That was bad. I mean, I'm pretty sure I heard you correctly there.
You probably did. It's 8:42 p.m. and I am basically on the edge of my seat. I'm up 30 points in fantasy. I'm actively looking at the screen to hope Travis Kelce doesn't go off, but we're trying. I'm probably gonna have a lot more spelling mistakes from here. Kevin Yu wins in a playoff over Bo Hosser. I almost spoke into existence a Keith Mitchell victory. Any notes or interest from the Sanderson Farm this week as we progress further in the FedEx Fall? You know, we're already a third of the way to there, which is kind of crazy to think about how fast the fall swing is going. It feels like September came and gone. We're now almost into mid-October.
Came and went, but yeah, same thing.
Damn it. Words.
Christ, man.
No,
look, it was a very entertaining event. Scores were low. Which is pretty much what we predicted. I believe it was 23 under that was in the playoff. You feel for Keith Mitchell. You do. He only hit one fairway on the back nine, and that happened to be his 18th. And he really struggled coming in. I would not say he handed the event to anyone. He didn't. He fought to the bitter end. I believe he had a putt in the last hole to actually make it a 3-for-1 playoff.
Yep.
So he despite the underwhelming driving performance on the second nine that he had, he was still in a position to win, and that's really all you can ask for. It's like when guys go to Monday qualifiers. If you have a chance to if you have a chance to get into a tour event with 9 holes to go, you're doing a good job. And it's the same thing. If you have a chance to win a PGA Tour event with 9 holes to go, you're doing something right. So Keith Mitchell's going to win, I think, this fall. His game's just too good. Lucas Glover had a backdoor top tied for third finish. Like
insane.
Basically after I pretty much just made fun of him last week for how early he used to putt the ball. You might hear about him later tonight on one of my beer money picks. Just saying, Lucas Glover has really turned me into a fan. But no, it was a great event. It always is a great event. Putting rain's key at that place. Bo Hostler, a player who I think a lot of people expected big things from, especially when he competed in the 2012 U.S. Open at the Olympic Club in the San Francisco area. I don't even think he was in high school. I don't even think he was in college at the time.
He was, he was still a senior.
Yeah, he was still a senior in high school, and people expected big things from him. He's been on tour. He hasn't done a whole lot maybe this springboards him into the rest of the fall season and into 2025. A great event for him. Obviously, it sucks to lose a playoff, but really a nice event for him. Congratulations to Kevin Yu on a job well done. It's very difficult to shoot 4 really good rounds in a row and to make that many birdies and to continue to make that many birdies. So Kevin Yu, job well done. Congratulations. We have some KFT news though. Steve, tell us about that.
We do. We have a lot. Real quick though, I do want to say with Kevin Yu, as you said, 4 straight rounds of 67 or better. Literally went 3 straight 66s, and almost, might I add, if you look at the scorecards, they looked almost the exact same. Where he did well was on very specific holes, and where he did poorly was on very specific holes, and it showed throughout the entirety of the week. Also, huge shout out to Daniel Berger, finally getting a top 10 for the first time in like a year and a half. He had, I think, seven out of his last 8 events were missed cuts going into this week. So a huge springboard for Daniel Berger, hopefully battling the injury bug. Michael Torbjornsson, another great event coming out of the PGA Tour U, finally getting his first cracks and his first licks full-time on tour. Wishing Mackenzie Hughes played a little bit better, pushed us for a win. And then, of course, Ricky Fowler finishing in the top 20 and hopefully not giving us a complete slap in the face, false hope that he is going to perform well going into the year. But no, the KFT has... This is my favorite part of the year because while the FedEx Fall is happening and while we're all interested in who's going to get the tour card and who's going to end up falling out and who's going to get into their signature events, what really is amazing is when you can get to a part of the year where just pure joy and ecstasy in 72 holes comes to fruition. And I was on the couch the entirety of the weekend. If I wasn't watching the Mets, I was watching the Corn Ferry Tour Championship. 30 PGA Tour cards doled out. 16 were already locked in. 13 were locked in. 17 new cards as of this weekend. We're getting some really big names coming back to the PGA Tour, as well as some new names that you might have heard on and off a little bit. Harry Higgs is making his way back. He locked in 3 wins early on in the year, but also finished T8 at the KFT final. So he gets back in. John Pack, who was number 1 in the inaugural PGA U standings. But back when that existed in 2021, you didn't get immediate qualification on the PGA Tour. You got automatic KFT qualification. In his 3rd full year, John Pack finally gets over the hump and is now getting on to the PGA Tour. Matt McCarty, who was number 1 on the KFT points list. He had 3 wins in 6 starts this year. An absolute tear in his first full year on the KFT. Frankie Cappan, who you very well might know him as the apprentice to Justin Thomas at the University of Alabama. Started his career at FGCU, now goes to Bama and managed. Are you sure it was the other end?
I'm 100% sure. Yep.
Oh, then I am to be mistaken. Was a apprentice of Justin Thomas, one of his idols, which is one of the reasons why he ended up going to Alabama. He's now back. He's now on tour for the first time in his career. He'll be a really sexy rookie going into the year. Guys are going to be wanting to look at him in terms of rookie of the year candidates. And also Aldrich Potgeier, the South African, who's now the 2nd youngest Corn Ferry Tour graduate ever at 20 years old. Ben, trivia, do you know who the youngest Corn Ferry Tour graduate was at about 19 and a half years old? This was about 15 years ago, 14 years ago.
All right, so that would be 15 years. So it would be like 2009, 2010.
He's now in his mid-30s.
No, his mid-30s. Jason Day.
Jason Day, 19 years old. Aldrich Potgeier just 2nd behind him by only like 40 days too, which is also kind of crazy. So a lot of really cool names coming back to the KFT. As I said, this is awesome to be able to get not only some really interesting rookies, and again, we've seen this in the past, guys who have come up from the KFT and have immediately had a lasting impact. Colin Morikawa, Max Homa, just 2 of the various names. Victor Hovland as well. There have been so many guys who have gone through the ranks here and have worked their ways up, and we always see one or 2 rookies every year show out in a phenomenal way. I really do think that between McCarty, Cappan, and Potgeier, we're going to end up seeing some really talented young guys, and hopefully Harry Higgs sticks around and can take his shirt off for one more year at the Waste Management. By the way, I don't know if you caught this, but you had brought up the Monday queue earlier in the Sanderson Farm bit. I don't know if you saw this. There was 4 guys who ended up making the Monday queue for this week's event. And there was apparently a clerical error that multiple guys were supposed to take part in the pre-qualifying, but ended up just bypassing it and going straight to the regular. 2 of those 7 guys got into the Monday queue, and now everyone's furious because they didn't play the pre-queue. What's your opinion on that? If you even have a firm one, apparently all the golfers who found out like halfway through the day were like, "What the fuck? Like, why are these guys like
so basically,
how did they get here?"
So basically, there were guys that were supposed to play in the pre-qualifier who just bypassed it and they ended up just playing in the Monday.
Yeah, they were all like sectional qualifiers, but they all were supposed to play in the pre-queue, but a clerical error just pushed them on to the main Monday queue.
I mean, it's not the player's fault. Like, be mad at whoever's who is it. I don't know who's running that. The Utah PGA. I don't know.
Probably,
like, yeah. Whoever's running that, that's on them. I mean, seriously. There's a saying by the great Billy Bean: when your enemies make mistakes, don't interrupt them. So it's pretty simple. I mean,
why has everyone been quoting Moneyball recently?
Because it's a great movie. And please, Steve, let me finish. I'm not done yet. We do this a lot, okay? It's not the player's fault though. It's not. This is up to whoever. I'm assuming it might be the Utah PGA. That's their issue. Did any of those players happen to get in?
Two of them did. So
they got into the Black Desert Championship.
Yeah, 2 guys who were supposed to be in the pre-queue bypassed. One of them sunk the putt on 18 to make it. And the other guys. So now everyone's furious. They're like, why the fuck are these 2 guys in when they should have been in the pre-queue anyways? It's a whole thing.
Who cares? They got in. So like they beat you fair and square. Like seriously. And I hope that those 2 guys are like, well, fuck yeah, I'm gonna play. Like I earned it. I'm not withdrawing myself. Like, no, you shouldn't. Absolutely not. Like that's like being mad at somebody that's like being mad at a player for getting an improper ruling from a rules official that ends up helping them. It's not the player's fault. That's the rules official's fault. Like so like it's not the player. Like the players, you're supposed to know the rules. There are so many rules in golf. It's impossible to know them. That's why we have rules officials. There are so many like different, I guess like types of criteria that you could bypass the pre-queue. Please, like, let's pump the brakes, give the players a break. And they got a great break and they made the most of it. Like, that's what you do in sports. So
a great tweet from Monday Q Info. A guy or 2 guys wasn't supposed to be eligible to be in the Monday, not only got into the Monday because of a clerical error, but is also about to Monday. Nothing more Monday than that. It's Monday. And first of all,
error.
The clerical error was that they were supposed to take part in the pre-qualifying, but I guess their names never showed up on the card, but they weren't eligible for the actual Monday queue in the first place. So they just pushed them along, and one guy shot 8 under, the other one shot 7 under, made the putt to get in, edged out like 7 guys who were all at 6 under, who would have been in a playoff for the final spot. So they were all pissed off about it. It's a whole big thing, but impressive that Ryan French managed to make a tweet that used Monday as a noun, adjective, and a verb. That's kind of amazing. But I absolutely love this. Also, yes, it was the Utah section of the PGA. Speaking of outrage, and I don't know if it's not outrage from anybody in the public eye, but for me, I would be shocked to ever see this. Imagine in your entire life, you ended up qualifying for the Masters, and then you said, no, I'm not going to go to the Masters. Well, that happened with Wen Yi Ding, and I want to get your take here. Wen Yi Ding, 19 years old, was a student at Arizona State. He just secured a DP World Tour membership, finishing number 1 on the global amateur pathway rankings. He also won the Asia Pacific Amateur and gained entry into the Masters and the Open Championship as an amateur. But because he finished number 1 on the GAPR, the qualifications with that to earn your DP World Tour membership is that you must be 20 years old and not be a current graduate student, which means you must turn pro. He withdrew from Arizona State just before the fall semester. He turns 20 in November before the DP World Tour calendar starts. He's debating right now foregoing his eligibility as an amateur to play in the Masters and the Open to turn pro and start his career at the DP World Tour. If you were in his shoes, what would you do?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, look, I think it depends on the person. There's a lot of things that go into it, and I think there's a lot of financial incentive to turn pro, especially if you're going to be playing the DP World Tour, because that's real money.
Yeah.
And so everyone's financial situation is different. I believe Patrick Cantlay actually did this. I think he did this. He ended up turning pro, so he couldn't play in the Masters and the U.S. Open. Ended up working out just fine. He plays those events every year now. Now it looked a little bleak at one point because he hadn't played in a while. I think he had some pretty serious back injuries, so he hadn't played. He wasn't really playing. He wasn't really playing that well. But it ended up working out in the end. I mean, if I were him, I would stay an amateur and I would play those events and I would turn pro right after the U.S. Open. That's probably what I would do. But look, it's his career. It's his. I always tell people, it's in my case, it's my career and I can do whatever I want with it. Well, it's his career and he can do whatever he wants with it. Obviously, the kid's got a lot of game. You win the Asia Pacific Amateur. That you don't win it by accident, right? And so he has a DP World Tour membership. He's basically he's one of the best amateurs in the world, and so I'm sure if everything goes according to plan, and he stays healthy and he continues to progress how he feels he'll be playing in the Masters and the U.S. Open at some point. So I would everyone's situation is different. Personally, I wouldn't do it, but I totally understand why he would do it, because it gets to the point where it's like college golf probably wasn't really serving him at that point.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I know I'm really good. I know I'm going to turn pro. I don't really need this education, so I'm just going to do it, because college will always be there for you after the fact anyway if you choose to go back. College is never going to go away. So I have no problem with him doing that at all. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I honestly don't know what I would do. I'm also not a pro golfer, so when I'm given the opportunity to go play the Masters, how could you say no? But it totally makes sense when you're in a financial situation and you would have to be able to go pro. Plus, again, the DP World Tour is no slouch. They're going to give you some real money, and you're able to compete as a 20-year-old with some of the best talent. With really some of the best talent in the world. You can argue that the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour don't match up with value, but when you look at it from a global scale, the amount of European golfers who started out on the DP World Tour, Tommy Fleetwood comes to mind immediately, Tyrrell Hatton, John Rahm, Nikolai Højgaard in the last 2 years, it's very clear that the talent level is simply there, and we don't give it enough appreciation. So I don't know what I would do there, but I thought it was an interesting little tidbit on that end. We're going to take a short break. On the other side, an exclusive interview with Brian Taylor of Reef Capital Partners, who's not only been a part of the process to create the Black Desert Championship and the Black Desert Resort as a whole, but he got to walk with the Tom Weiskopf when he was setting up dynamite on this golf course. How cool is that? Ben, your final point here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. Big shout out to Brian. He was fantastic. Really did a great job. Loved having him on the show. I also wanted to shout out a couple people who made the interview possible.
Yeah, please.
So I have a really good friend of mine who I know he used to be the super at Long Island National, and now he is. And I don't want to mess this up because I specifically asked him. He is the director of golf course and grounds at Cutalong on Lake Anna, which is one of the most beautiful courses in Virginia. I've been there. I was there 2 summers ago. I drove 8 hours just to play it on my way back to Florida. And Jimmy is a great friend of mine. He's the best super in the game. I think, Augusta National, when you have an opening for a head of grounds or a super, you need to hire Jimmy Pearson ASAP soon as possible. He's fantastic. And then also Parker Enlow. Jimmy put me in touch with Parker. Parker is he is the owner of Cutalong at Lake Anna and Black Desert. He was able to put me in touch with Brian Taylor. Big shout out, 2 great guys. Thank you so much to both of them for making this possible. Easily our best guest yet on the show. So big shout out to those guys. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to everybody who was able to make it possible. Don't go anywhere. Exclusive interview with Brian Taylor to talk all things Black Desert Championship right here on the other side. We'll be right back. Steve and Ben on Get in the Hole.
Get in the Hole is brought to you by PHI Apparel Company, our incredible merch partners. PHI Apparel Co. provides unique designs and high-quality clothing from t-shirts to hoodies for every golfer around. With their original designs for all, there's no doubt you'll stand out on the course, the driving range, or at the 19th hole. Go to phiapparel.co and use code UNDERGROUND at checkout for 10% off any order. That's code UNDERGROUND at phiapparel.co and grab exclusive Get in the Hole podcast merch and support your favorite golfers.
Welcome back in to Get in the Hole with Steve and Ben. Joining us on a very special second half appearance, Brian Taylor of Reef Capital Partners, joining us to discuss all things Black Desert Championship-wise. Of course, Brian has been not only a part of the actual build-out of this place, which is actually amazing, but has seen and watched this golf course grow over the last few years in order to get to where it is now, a PGA Tour spot on the FedEx Fall. Brian, thank you for joining us. And first of all, just kind of give us a little bit of background on yourself, what you do with Reef Capital Partners, and how exciting this has been over X amount of time in order to get not only a incredible resort out in Utah, but also to be able to now say you're going to be hosting not only a PGA event, but also an LPGA Tour event come 2025.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, as you were saying that, I'm literally getting shivers right now as you're saying that. Like, it is. I spent the whole day out there today. I got there first thing in the morning. I couldn't have been more excited to see this come together. You know, for the last 4 years, having a chance to be on this property when it was nothing but lava and sagebrush, and to walk out with Phil Smith and Tom Weiskopf, and to see them have some sort of vision of completely unorganized earth, to see a golf course that might appear from this, it's really remarkable. And then to take fast forward to, I've been involved with selling the real estate and marketing the event, kind of from a Reef standpoint, an ambassador with investors and real estate purchasers and that kind of thing. So, I've spent a lot of time bringing guys down, introducing them to the golf course. We had a preview when it was just 9 holes, and then we opened up the other 9 holes. And so to be able to take people out and have them see the evolution, and then to find out there's going to be a PGA Tour event. First of all, I told them, there's no way you're doing this. And then they did it. Somehow they did it. And so here we are. And today was the culmination of a lot of hard work by a lot of people. The golf course looks pristine. It's been closed for a month. And so it's just absolutely pristine, perfect. It's just pure. And it's cool to see, the whole circus is in town. I mean, I've seen it all over the country, but it's kind of cool to see it right in our backyard here at Black Desert. So, I couldn't be more excited to talk to you guys and answer whatever questions and introduce your audience to Black Desert.
Yeah, Brian, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, as we discussed before we started recording, this is not a first, but it's been 60 or 61 years since the PGA Tour was in the state of Utah. And so not many people, I think, are as familiar with the desert style of golf. Obviously, one would think firmer golf course is going to be more rollout. Dry air, the ball tends to cut through the air a lot more than if you're at sea level in Florida or somewhere on the East Coast. You're going to have cool mornings, it looks like, low 60s, and then kind of like mid 80s to mid 90s at some point through the week in the afternoons. And factoring in the elevation, which is around 3,000 feet, how do you think the course is going to play for some of the best players in the world? The scores, the strategy, what do you think?
Yeah, good questions. And you're right. People don't, I've lived in Utah for about 30 years. I've had the chance to travel around to a lot of different tour sites and a lot of different golf destinations. And a lot of, most people don't think of Utah and golf. You think of Utah and skiing, which we certainly do have a rich history and a lot of world-class ski resorts in northern Utah. Utah's unique in that in northern Utah, we're at 6,000 feet, right? And then you drive 3 hours south and you essentially have almost a Las Vegas type climate right here in southern Utah, this little portion of the state. And so for all of us that live in northern Utah and surrounding states, mountain states that are different climates throughout the year, St. George has been our winter getaway. We'll drive down. There's lots of good municipal courses. There's been a couple other courses that have come up over the years. And it became a place where, in January and February, you can find, 50s and 60s. There's 360 days of sunshine down here. And people just, it's pleasant. As long as the wind's not blowing, even in the 40s, it's okay. You got green grass and you can play golf. Black Desert did something that, hasn't really been done, and in creating an actual destination for people to come down and actually stay, play, shop, dine, everything's right on site. And so that's kind of the intro just for people that are unfamiliar with golf in Utah. You can fly into Las Vegas and it's a 2-hour drive north on I-15. You can fly into Salt Lake and it's about a 3.5-hour drive south from Salt Lake on I-15. So that's where we're at. Just to kind of give you a little heads up, Mesquite, Nevada is where they hold the long drive competition. That's just about 30 minutes south on I-15 as well. So that's where we're at. And as far as the best players in the world, all the things you mentioned is correct. It gets warm, and we've had a particularly warm fall. Even up north, we're still touching 90s. And so to see it in the 90s this week, it's going to be pretty toasty. It'll be absolutely perfect. I think the winds are going to be mild, if anything, maybe 10 miles an hour. That's a big factor out here. Weiskopf created this to be a resort golf course. It's very playable for the everyman, but he created some, the back tees and some lines that the better players could take on that would keep their interest. And that's what I love about it. I think it's really difficult in golf course architecture to be able to create something that will work and be playable for a resort guest, that kind of thing, wide open fairways, but also still make it interesting and challenging for the better players. And so I think you're going to see this week that it's not going to be particularly long. To your point, it's dry air. It's 3,000 feet of elevation. And so ball's going to go, right? For these guys, ball's going to go plenty far. Mike Weir, who is a Utah resident, just coming off the President's Cup, he holds the course record at 66 from about a month or so ago. And he says, I love it because it's not long. Well, Weirzy was never long, and he's not any longer now than he was back in the early 2000s when he was winning 8 or 9 times on tour in the Masters. So and I think that gives you an idea. Very generous fairways. I think it's a second shot. I've always said it's a second shot course. I think depending on where the pin locations are, it really gives you something to shoot for. You're going to have some false fronts that you got to be careful. If the pin's up front, ball rolled down 30 yards off the green, you got to control your spin into it, especially. Greens are going to be absolutely pure. I talked to the agronomist from the PGA Tour today. He said he's got them just where he wants them. They're probably 11.5 to 12, and that's probably the speed limit because of the slopes and some of the things on these greens. And so even talking to the players today, if you got a hot putter, you can light it up. Greens are perfect. Again, like I said, golf course has been closed for a month. We've just been letting this thing get in perfect condition. So these tour players, we want them to come out of here being like, man, that's a great golf course. That's a lot of fun. And we want to come back. And so I do think it's going to favor guys that are sharp with their irons. And then certainly, it's a putter's paradise. I think you get it rolling. I would expect you're going to be 20, 22, 23 under par by the end of the week. This is not one where it's going to be a grinded out US Open type golf course, but it's generous off the tee. I talked to one guy today, and Troy Merritt's a good friend of mine, and Troy said, it's like El Cardinal down in Cabo Tigers course. They could hit it everywhere, right? It was wide open. But even if you missed it, you had a good 10, 12 yards of rough you could play from. Here, if you miss it, you were in the lava and it's dead. You're essentially re-tee, right, or re-hit. It's a two-shot stroke of distance. And so I do think there will be some guys that get off base and get in trouble. But for the most part, I think guys will be able to put it where they want it, and then it's just a matter of second shots.
I think by the sound of it, Mike Weir's 66 is going to be off the board pretty damn quick this week.
Not even close. Yeah.
we very well could see someone go off for a 63. I'm kind of feeling it on a very gettable par 71 course. I can go on for hours and talk about the agrology of this place, the rough that's going on here. I want to get to just the nitty gritty of what you've experienced walking with the great late Tom Weiskopf and understanding how this course was built. I know that in Utah there's a ton of protected lands. Was there any issue with getting that approved? How were you able to make, again, a golf course out of literally a lava field? I'm looking at photos and I'm like, this place is 98% rock. How did they even get grass out here? And then also, I had a great question from a friend of mine. He was like, how do you irrigate this place? Is there any details that you can give from when you've been walking around this course, seeing how it was growing over X amount of years that made this such a unique project from a golf course perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question, Steve. And I think you look at the history of this. So there was one gentleman that owned the entire piece of land. There's 600 acres the Black Desert sits on, and then there was at least that much next door where Entrada is, the Entrada development, which was a Johnny Miller design. It's a private course. It's kind of the premier private course here in southern Utah. And he sold that first half off to some developers that did the private club. They set up Entrada, sold the real estate, the memberships, all that kind of stuff. The plan was, and it was already zoned to be this resort. The second half where Black Desert sits was always going to be a resort. And that was done years ago. And so I think that's an important piece. Would something like Black Desert get approved today? I don't know if it would, right? I mean, water is certainly a concern. This is a desert, and everywhere in the United States, and unless you're sitting on maybe in Minnesota, I don't know. They have a lot of lakes, but in most of the places out west, water is a concern. And a lot of our water in Utah funnels down into Nevada and on into California and that kind of thing, right? And so water's an issue out here in the West. And so thankfully the water rights were already there. And we've taken a lot of measures to conserve water, to recycle, all of that kind of stuff. I should have somebody else that's smarter than me on here that knows, but we've gotten several awards for the way that we have built this resort for the with that in mind, right? Conservation in mind. And so I'll throw that out there because everybody wants to know. But right now, everything we're doing, in fact, we're working very closely with the local university here, Utah Tech University, that's doing studies on the environment and how putting this golf course with the irrigation, what is that doing to the forgetting the word here, the biology, I guess, around the areas. Because all of a sudden you go from a desert that had no real water unless it rained to getting some overspray from irrigation of the golf course. And they're starting to see how some of these neat things have started to happen. Some of these things have bloomed, which apparently some of these particular, lizards and whatever would eat, which has brought different kinds of animals to that because now the food source is reproducing. And I guess it's kind of cool how the ecology is evolving because of what we're doing here. So there's that. I don't know if that helps, but walking with Weiskopf was phenomenal. I mean, I remember this, one of the first memories I have of walking with Tom. He slipped and fell on the lava and cut up his leg. He was blood coming down his shins and all this kind of stuff. Like you had to be out in full hiking boots. And, you really needed to kind of protect yourself because it was sketchy. Even still, we'll tell people that are out playing golf, look, when it goes into the lava, it's gone. I know you can see it there, but don't ruin your $200 golf shoes trying to retrieve a $4 golf ball, right? That's already probably cut up on the cover because it's been bouncing around the lava. So, it's neat to see how Weiskopf and Phil Smith worked to carve this out. I can tell you it was not a small effort. I think it was pretty much close to double the cost of building a golf course because of the amount of blasting and excavation through the lava. It's not an easy thing to do, and yet it created this masterpiece. And we're saddened that Tom passed away of cancer during this project. We're going to continue to honor his legacy and really feel like he left us a legacy piece in Black Desert. And so with this being the 73rd and final design of Tom Weiskopf's career, with Tom having won the Open in 73, we're doing our club, our restaurant bar area sitting right on the practice green is called Club 73. We'll have a statue of Tom out there. We're going to have some of his memorabilia that displayed as well. And it's Weiskopf Way coming in, the road signs. And it's just, he's a neat man. One of the great legacy designers, I think. If you've had a chance to play his courses, I think most people really love how he designs a golf course. And so it was really neat to see how it came together. Phil Smith told me one time as we're walking out there, he said, it's the perfect combination of Kona, Hawaii, and Sedona, Arizona, with the Black Rock and the Red Mountains surrounding. So it really is something unique. I think when people are watching on TV this week, they're going to be absolutely blown away to say, wow, where is this place? Is this even on our planet? And yeah, it is. It's in southern Utah. It's Ivins, just a suburb of St. George. And it is it's discovered, and it's going to be even more discovered. And Black Desert is the crown jewel in the area for sure.
So it's funny. So you bring up the town of Ivins, and now I got this off of Google. I'm not 100% sure if this is correct. It says the population is roughly 10,000 people. And I do believe that whenever a PGA Tour event or a major championship is held at a specific course, there are challenges that arise. And I remember specifically when I think it was 2018, I think it was, when we had the U.S. Open at Shinnecock. Everyone was concerned, where are we going to put the spectators? Because it's all fescue. It's a link style course. And so they ended up cutting down the fescue so people could walk. Whereas at a course like Bethpage Black, when I was there for the U.S. Open, it's such an expansive piece of property, and there's so much rough, and then there's fescue to where you could fit a ton of people. Looking at the pictures that I saw on Google, and you had kind of alluded to this before, there isn't a whole lot of rough to stop the golf ball from going into the lava. Or is there a concern at all regarding the amount of spectators that will be able to be on the course while golf is being played? Is there a like some sort of contingency plan, I guess? How are you guys going about that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's actually a really popular question. If you're following me on social, I posted a video today of I walked the whole front nine, and I took video and picture of the walkways, and I just said, there's room for spectators to walk and observe. And so hopefully that puts your worries to rest. Pass it on. I've literally been asked this question. What if you come out here and play? I'll just put it this way. If you come out here and play, you would say, where are you going to put spectators? Like, literally it goes from grass to lava, and there's hardly any rough. The difference is, like I talked about in the beginning, these are massively wide fairways, and knowing the PGA Tour needs very little of these wide, expansive fairways, I just assumed they would rope off parts of the fairway, and that would allow for spectators to walk alongside their players and go up by the green and all that kind of stuff. And sure enough, I walked the whole front nine today, and there are a couple places, and I'll just tell you. So we've got, sorry, I'm bouncing around here, but you can walk most of the front nine with the players, and there's some places you could set chairs up and watch, some really nice viewing areas. If you're coming out here, I would put a chair on the top of number 1 green. Number 2 tee box is right next to it. You could literally sit there, and it's the highest point on the golf course with some spectacular views. You could watch shots coming into the 490-yard par 4 and watch the lines that guys are taking on the dogleg right par 4 next. It's going to be a layup hole and then a shot to a tough green. So we have closed holes 4 through 7 to spectators. And the reason for that is we've got construction going on with our single family home lot village down there. It's called South Village. And there's just too much construction at the moment to be able to safely navigate spectators down through those holes 4, 5, 6, and 7. Kind of makes a little horseshoe. You guys come out. You're welcome to be my guest, and we'll play that. I call it the gauntlet. Number 4 is the number 1 handicap, par 4, a little bit of a blind tee shot that goes down a hill. And if you hit the little speed slot, you're going to have a nice little wedge in. If you don't, you're going to hit a 5-iron in. 5 is drivable. Weiskopf's famous for his drivable par 4s. 5 and 14 are the 2 drivables. So I talked to Troy Merritt this morning. He said he hit a driver to a foot, which, again, depends on where the pin is. But, I mean, that's a nice little eagle opportunity. And then 6 is a great hole. You split a couple of ponds, and then it's a shot up to one of the toughest greens on the golf course with some really good fall off areas. And then 7's the first par 5. And so you can watch them tee off 4, watch them come into 7 green. Otherwise, you can follow them all the way around the front 9 and the back 9. And then we've set up some really nice viewing platform areas, what nice fan village, where people can go up and get nice vantage points and see multiple holes from certain locations. And so it really, the resort has done a nice job investing in this infrastructure, which is all temporary, right? It'll come down, then it'll come back up again for the ladies in May, come down, then come back up again next fall when we go, the PGA returns. So I don't mean to make light of your question. I just have gotten it a million times over the last 2 years about where are you going to put spectators. And I'm just grateful to see that we're going to be able to accommodate it. Now, having said that, I think we did limit the number of tickets per day sold to 10,000. And it's my understanding that that's kind of a tour average for a lot of the kind of the run-of-the-mill tournaments, which, I attend a lot of the major championships where they have 50, 60,000 people there. And of course, the Phoenix Open, they blow the doors off of everything. But we're excited to have those people. My hope is that we'll have so many people that want to attend this event that we're going to have to get more creative to be able to welcome more people and more spectators. And rather than, hey, we created all this room and nobody showed up. So right now we're sold out on Friday and Saturday. I think we're mostly sold out on Thursday. And I think we're reaching capacity on Sunday. So the community is excited to welcome this event. There's a lot of hospitality. There's a lot of homes that are for rent this week. I talked to some of the Callaway staffers, and they all rented a house that's about half a mile away. And there's 5 of them staying in it. It was $1,000 a night between 5 of them. Pretty nice deal. And so there's hotels I think are all sold out, but there's lots of them, and we're the town's ready to. It's about 100,000 people in the greater St. George area. So we're excited and ready to welcome the PGA Tour, and here we are.
One of the awesome things about when a new event pops up, and again, we don't really get a lot of new events per se. I think over the last 3 or 4 years, maybe the Myrtle Beach Classic is one of the only real new ones, and that's really only because of sponsorship changes and other different things here and there. And then also with as the fall swing kind of took its shape over the last 3 years, we have gotten some newer events. But the really cool thing about being able to go to somewhere like Utah, like as we said, hasn't been there in 60 years, the tourism that comes with it, the overall growth of just the local economy. I mean, I went to college in Connecticut, and TBC River Highlands would bring thousands amongst thousands of people and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I talked to the mayor of Cromwell, Connecticut back I don't know 5-6 years ago. He's like, look, we've been around here since the 60s, and this place has gotten uber expensive to even come by. Even now, 80 years later, to become a staple. How much of an impact are you guys projecting just on local tourism and growth within the area over the next few years with this event being able to take place? And how has the local community responded to wanting to get involved and be able to hold more local events and or charitable events in the area in the lead up and then post aftermath?
Yeah, really good question. I should be armed with the economic development forecast. I don't have that right offhand, but I can tell you that, I was talking to my dad today, and he goes, this is so great. He said, this is the kind of exposure you can't buy. And I said, well, actually you can. And we did for about $10 million. So bringing a tour event, right? So it is going to make a huge impact. Again, when this thing hits TV, people are going to be blown away and they're going to want to come here. I talked to one of the tour reps today that lives in Florida, and he lives on the Floridian, and he's got a nice home there. He's been around on the tour for 25 plus years. And he said, Brian, I got to come back when I'm doing West Coast swing. He goes, I work first 3 days, and then I don't go home to Florida because I'm out there for 3 or 4 straight events. And he goes, let's plan a time. I want to come stay here. I want to play the golf course. And I probably want to buy one of these things. We need a place to get out of here in the summertime, even though St. George summers are hot. They don't have the humidity that Florida has, as you all know. You're shaking your head, I get it. So the 102 feels a lot better than it would maybe even at 90 in Florida, right? So I think you're already seeing the impacts of what this is going to have. We're going to be hiring 2,000 to 3,000 employees to run Black Desert, right? As this thing continues to be built out and opened up. We're still in a preview phase. Literally, tour players are staying in our hotel, and they're the first ones to sleep in these beds, right? I mean, we are literally soft opening for the PGA Tour, which I teased my guys, and I'm like, you really? They thought this was the great strategy? And yet they pulled it off, and it looks great. Like, it literally looks great. But keep in mind, we'll be soft opening until March. I mean, we will not grand open this hotel until March. And so there's still a lot of bugs to work out. There's still a lot of construction. We still have 4 or 5 years probably before it's completely built out. We've got a water park that's under construction. That's one area called the Cove. We've got pickleball facility that's going to be a 28 court with a center court and grandstands that we're looking to host national pickleball type stuff. Like, it is. This place is they call it a 600 acre entertainment venue. And so the impact on the economy is huge. Some of the locals have been super excited about it. One of the things we're building is a boardwalk, which is a whole shopping and dining experience. It's an outdoor pedestrian only where you can park underneath. We have 2,000 underground parking stalls. So you can get out of the elements, come up the elevator and walk through the palm trees and shop and dine. St. George doesn't really have that kind. That's still developing. There's not that, there's a demand, but we haven't really fulfilled it. And so Black Desert's going to be part of that. So the locals will be able to participate in that. It's going to bring tourism to the areas. We have a ton of baseball and soccer tournaments that are constantly being held here. We have marathons down here in St. George. One just completed last week, and all of those kind of things. So it's really a big destination. We have national parks that are within an hour. And so Black Desert aims to be kind of the base camp for all of that activity, and we'll run shuttles to the airport. We'll run shuttles to Zion's and Bryce, those the national parks and so forth. There's hiking and biking trails up Snow Canyon. So the economic impact is going to be far-reaching. We're wanting to be good neighbors. We understand it's going to bring additional traffic to the areas, which people that live here probably don't love that. It's certainly, we have kicked up a bunch of dust over the last few years during construction. And I've had a few people that have kind of scoffed at me when I've been working on site and things like that. But that's part of growth. And we, like I said, doing our best to, I'll give you one example. Utah Tech is a new university, a 4-year university, D1 program. And their golf team, we gifted them a parcel of land. They raised some money, created a short game area, and Black Desert is their home course. How's that for recruiting? And so that's going to help build that golf program. And we're doing a lot with the local universities and supporting the local businesses as well. So I don't have the exact number, but we're excited for what this is going to do and how it's going to help this area. And I know everybody, what's that Eagles song? If you call someplace paradise, you kiss it goodbye. People are going to find it, right? They've already found it, and we hope to be able to provide a little nice slice of it right here at Black Desert.
So you mentioned a lot of the construction that's going on, and there's still a ton of development to be done. Again, 600 acres. Whenever you even started construction on this place, there's still so much more to go. When the PGA Tour finally reached out and said, "Hey, we want to add an event," what was the conversation like to be like, well, we don't really have this place like fully done yet. Like, we got to go through all this. How did you guys work around that? Were they just giddy to find a new gorgeous parcel of land and say, hey, let's golf here?
I think we had good timing, coming off of COVID and everything. I think there were some, and the LIV, all the stuff that was going on with that. I think there were some, opportunities for another event and another sponsor, right? And so Patrick Manning, who's our managing partner down here, you've probably seen him. He's the, short guy with the white beard. He's kind of on all the interviews. I'll give Patrick credit, man. He is kind of a visionary. He's a dreamer, and he kind of like, let's bite it. Let's just bite it, and we'll figure out how to chew it later. And he called the PGA. To his story is that he made contact with the PGA Tour, and they said, yeah, we get all these calls all the time. And he just basically insisted, you have to come to Black Desert. And they made a trip out, and in the midst of them touring the golf course, again, this was a year and a half ago with a lot less completed than there is now. They just said, we want in 2024. And so we went to work. It gave us a deadline to go after it. And it did put a lot of pressure and a lot of strain on a lot of people that, I think we doubled our construction crew and the costs associated with that, and really worked to get this thing done. But I got to take my hat off to all the people involved. When I showed up this morning, and I've been here as early as 2 weeks ago, and the amount of work that's been completed just in the last 2 weeks is remarkable. I mean, we've got people in the lobby with the front desk looking like a normal resort. I mean, it sounds silly, but that thing wasn't even completed a couple of weeks ago, and now here they are, like with operations and computers and room keys and so on and so forth. So it is amazing. I teased them, like I told you, like, you really want a soft open for the PGA Tour, but here we are. Let's take advantage of it. And they announced the LPGA Tour first. That was the first one that we signed. The PGA Tour announcement was later. I'm forgetting the shoot. He's not going to give me a bad time about this, but is it Tyler Dennis? Is that right? That's the president of the PGA Tour. He's actually has Utah ties, and so he was super happy, and I think that may have helped. He was excited to be able to be part of bringing something. And I'll just give you a little background. So Johnny Miller created a golf course called Thanksgiving Point in northern Utah, and his hope was to bring a U.S. Open. That never came to fruition. It felt like Utah was. We hosted one of the last public links championships up in the Midway Park City area. And after that, that was our claim to fame. That was our only, like, quote unquote major, if you will. And but it felt like maybe we'd run its course and we were only going to be a Corn Ferry destination. And so we were excited, to be able to pull this off, get PGA, LPGA. We had an Epsom tour that we hosted last year up north and sponsored, and there's another one that's hosted down here as well. So it's a golf crazy state. People love their golf, and just excited that we were able to pull it off. And I mean, it's only Monday, guys, but here's hoping that the rest of the week still goes as smoothly as it has so far today.
Brian, one final question. We've brought up how the LPGA is coming to town, I believe, in May. How excited are you all at Black Desert to help grow the women's game? There's been a lot of talk, the disparity in men's sports versus women's sports, and the women's game isn't as popular as the men's game. Is there anything in particular that you're going to try to do to represent the LPGA and try to help them grow their brand?
Well, I know Patrick wants this to be the richest purse in women's golf. And the LPGA said, well, we got major championships for that. And he says, well, let's make this a major. And so I was like, whoa, again, Patrick. I'm like, but I've seen it enough times to say maybe he's going to pull it off. Who knows? Maybe the Avion moves over to Black Desert from France. You never know what might happen. I can tell you this. We're committed at Black Desert to making this an absolute world-class event for the ladies. We don't want to spare any expense. The hospitality and the experience that they're going to have here is going to be second to none. On the LPGA Tour, we want the best field out here. We want the richest purse. We want to really support these ladies. We've got a few different Epsom Tour players and young aspiring female players that are coming out of high school that we've sponsored and are helping to grow their professional dreams. And they practice. They're sort of ambassadors, and they practice at Black Desert. And Allie Mulhall is one of them, and she literally hits it 300 yards, and she's coming out of high school. She's phenomenal. And so we look at, how can we help these ladies grow? I'll tell you, in 25 years of hosting my show and being out to different PGA Tour events and major championships, still some of my favorite memories are going to the Kia Classic in Carlsbad, and seeing how the ladies, this is a great story I'll just share real quickly, is Stacey Lewis had just become the first world #1 American golfer in some time. And after that win, she came to the Kia Classic, and I asked the media attendant, I said, can I get an interview with Stacey? Oh yeah, no problem. I'm like, really? Just like that? She goes, oh yeah, she'll be over here in an hour. Just meet her right here. So I come back in an hour. She shows up, and she comes and introduces, shakes her hand. I'm like, so are we okay? She goes, yeah. I go, how long do you have? She goes, as much time as you need. I was just like, I'm blown away. You got to keep in mind, Tiger Woods was #1 at the time, right? I mean, that never is going to happen with Tiger. And I watch these. You're laughing, but it's true, right?
You're 100% right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Christy Kerr, I watch her tee off on the first tee. This is that tournament proper, right? As she's walking off the tee, her caddy hands her a sleeve of golf balls, which she had previously signed. She takes them out, walks along the rope, hands them to three little girls that are standing there, watch her play, and away she goes. I'm blown away at the attention and the kind of experience that you get from the LPGA Tour, and we're excited to bring that here, and we want to give that back to the ladies as well. So we hope, and I can tell you this, I didn't throw down the 10 grand to play in the Pro-Am this week, but I am saving my money for the ladies, and hoping to be able to participate alongside the ladies in the Pro-Am come end of April. It's going to be fun. So thanks for asking, and appreciate you guys' interest in what we're doing this week. It's we hope to exceed everybody's expectations and put on a world-class event.
Brian, I'm getting shivers almost every question, hearing about the golf course and hearing about how you're growing the game. And I'm like, I need to get to Utah. And I'm like, I will eventually scratch the itch eventually, but I am most certainly intrigued after watching this weekend. Hopefully, what's going to be a great event, but also a prosperous growth of not only Black Desert, but also this event on both the PGA and LPGA. So Brian, thank you so much for joining us. Guys, again, you could find Brian on all of his socials as well as Real Golf Radio. Just like us, a golf junkie and a golf enthusiast himself, you can hear him on Sirius XM and on local Utah radio. Brian, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it, and good luck this week. Enjoy the time.
Yeah, thank you. Last thing I'll drop is 18. Weiskopf told me that he wanted 18 to be a birdie hole or an eagle hole. He wanted you to come off the golf course and be excited and be happy. These guys are going to tear it up. I'm telling you, they're going to hit iron in there in two. They're going to make – I wouldn't surprise me if somebody drops an eagle putt to win this thing and switch it around. Like, it's going to be – there'll be some good drama coming down the stretch. So, yeah, thanks, guys.
That'd be absolutely incredible. Brian Taylor again, guys. Thank you so much.
What's going on, everybody? This episode of the Get in the Hole podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Acorn Hills. And as the great Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, the creation of 1,000 forests is in one acorn. Acorn Hills Company would like to add, it is what one does with that acorn that creates a better tomorrow, to the end of that quote. Nate, amazing guy. It was awesome meeting Nate when we first brought Acorn Hills on board and they got on board with us. The founder of Acorn Hills puts ink to the paper of this story with a vision he saw for a better tomorrow through clothing. As an outdoorsman himself, Nate set out to combine his two passions, looking good and the great outdoors, whatever that activity may be, by providing things such as biodegradable packaging and plantable clothing tags, which, if you haven't heard, are basically the coolest idea ever. We pay homage to our Acorn logo by practicing what we preach. Along with this, Acorn Hills focuses on giving back to its community by taking the initiative to help revitalize forests and areas of land that fill this great place we call Earth. With a percentage of sales donated to charities and organizations such as the National Forest Foundation and others that align with these goals, we create this better tomorrow. People have asked, why choose clothing? It's simple, really. When you look good, you feel good, and when you feel good, you do good. We just help you get there. Although Nate may have been alone when he started this, our roots now run very deep. You'll never look at acorns the same way again, huh? You're welcome. You guys can go to acornhillsco.com. Check out all the awesome apparel and merchandise they have available to you. And when you go to checkout, use code GITH15. That's GITH15 for 15% off your next order from our friends at Acorn Hills. And look your best from the ground up. Now, let's get back into the episode.
What a great interview with Brian, being able to talk shop, see how Black Desert's been coming along, and be able to get a lot of really great insights into what to expect this week at the Black Desert Championship. With that being said, let's get right into the good stuff, the beer money picks of the week. Yes, Ben.
I have one other question. I was looking at like last week's beer money picks. Did you go 0 for 5 and did I go 1 for 5? How did that work?
Yes.
Wow, we did that bad.
Yes.
But I'm winning, so it's all good. All right, continue.
Beer money picks brought to you by our good friends over at Kenwood Beer. You might be asking yourself, who is Kenny? Well, while Kenny Gainwell is scoring touchdowns for the Philadelphia Eagles, you can crack open a nice, cold, refreshing Kenwood beer. He's smooth, he's clean, and he's bright with a taste to boot. While the Phillies go on a playoff run as well, and hopefully lose to the Mets, possibly in Game 5 in Philadelphia, you can crack open an ice-cold Kenwood beer at Citizens Bank Park. Only 120 calories and 8 grams of carbs. Some call it the best light beer they've ever had. We just say you can't beat the original. Head to Kenwood Beer and use the Kenny Tracker to find where you can get your hands on some ice-cold, refreshing Kenwood beer from your favorite liquor stores in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and now the great state of Delaware, as well as the Wells Fargo Center and beyond. Must be 21 years or older to consume, and please drink responsibly. We lead off with a top 20 selection. Also, I know KB is gonna censor out that whole bit with the Mets, but we'll make it happen. Top 20 for you at the Black Desert Championship, the newest event on the tour calendar.
Okay, look, so like Brian said, this is a second shot golf course, right? And so given how it's long on the scorecard, but in reality, it's actually not that long. So length is not really a factor, so to speak. So really, who's really good coming into the greens? I mentioned this guy last week. I'm very bullish on him. I'm going to go with Ben Coles for a top 20. I think he's going to continue to have a successful PGA Tour run now that he has clearly established himself as a tour player. So he's not in danger of losing his card. So he's had a very solid year. The guy who's a seasoned veteran. So Ben Coles for a top 20.
My top 20 selection, I'm going to go with someone who's been absolutely spiking his irons lately. He'll be able to find a lot of those greens. They'll be able to attack a lot of these very large greens that they have, and also he's been very solid over his last few weeks in his strokes gained approach stats. He finished T7 in Napa. He finished third. He finished third at the Sanderson Farm. I'm really in on Austin Smotherman this week for a top 20. Again, has played really well also on Weisskopf Designs. Again, we talked about it in the interview. Like, people who like Tom Weisskopf Designs always play well there as well. He made a light note of that. I talk horses for courses. Austin Smotherman is that horse. Top 20 for the Smotherman. Top 10. Who you got?
Like we said, we're looking at guys who are really good with second shots. So the approach game, putting, guys who are good putters. Brian alluded to the fact that the greens are going to be running at around 11.5, 12, which is as fast as you can really get them, considering how undulating they are. And so it sounds like you're going to have to be hitting to the proper spot on the greens. So generally, just so people know what that means is you're not necessarily going at the pin. You're probably picking a spot on the green that you want to putt from. And so that being said, I'm going to go with Nick Taylor for a top 10. I think he's one of the best in the game at that. Good golfer, obviously, good golf swing. Really good going into the greens with his approach shots. So I'm going to go with Nick Taylor for a top 10. Yeah.
So we spoke at length about how not only is it imperative as a second shot course in order to find the green and find a certain spot on the green, and a putting contest will matter here. But I think the even more important part, and it's something that Brian mentioned early on in the show, is that there's not a lot of room between the fairways are wide. It's a resort style golf course. They're like 30 yards wide. But once you get past the fairway, there's only 7 or 8 yards at the very most of rough. And then it's just all rock. You're literally on a lava field. So driving accuracy, in my opinion, is so imperative this week. If you can, and again, you don't need to hit it very far. Mike Weir, like he had mentioned, course records right now at 66. It most certainly is not going to play. It's going to go down. It most certainly isn't playing at a 73-yard kind of golf course. We're talking 3,000 feet in elevation. It's going to play more like 67, 68. We're going to have a golf course on our hands where guys who are on the older side or guys who aren't necessarily the strongest are still going to be able to attack these drivable par 4s and these very gettable par 5s. I really like this week for a top 10 Seamus Power, who fits all the molds of somebody who is a FedEx Fall fiend. He manages to always win on these golf courses, and he always manages to play well in the FedEx Fall swing. I like Seamus Power for a top 10, top 5.
All right. You're going to laugh at this one. But this particular player, he does this. He'll have a hot week, and then he'll turn into another hot week, and it'll basically be like 3 weeks that make his year.
Lucas Glover
for a top 5 finish, and you might think I'm crazy, but he just finished tied for third at the last event at the Sanderson. I could totally see him just absolutely raking this week. I mean, elite ball striker. He has figured out his putting. It seems to be. So yes, I'm going to go with Lucas Glover for a top 5. Laugh all you want, Steve, but I'm going to be the one laughing.
I just hope Lucas Glover doesn't sweat through his pants when it's 94 degrees in the middle of Utah. We'll say top 5 for me. I'm going to ride with a really underrated and undervalued player who's been a staple on the PGA Tour and DP World Tour for the last 5 or 6 years. He gets outshined by other Australians. He gets outshined by Jason Day and Minwoo Lee and the hot, shiny object every single year. And this guy's like, he's in the corner. He does his thing. He manages to play well in majors, but no one really talks about him very much. But he fits this golf course to a T. He hits it straight. He's pin accurate with his iron play, and his putting has been really good over the last 5 weeks on both the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour. I'm going to go with Ryan Fox for a top 5. A very undervalued but very notable player who deserves more love from across the PGA Tour landscape. Your gimme pick before we get into those winners. Who you got?
All right, I'm going to go with someone who has kind of fallen off. I was about to say fallen off the face of the earth, but I think that that's a little harsh. Stanford product, someone who I really think, and a lot of people thought was going to make a name for himself on the tour. And he is a household name to some degree, but he just hasn't really had the career that many of us had thought. I'm going to go with Patrick Rogers for a top 10. Big, strong guy. He hits it a mile. So I think he's really going to eat this course up. And for how long he actually has very good feel, which I think is imperative. And so when you combine that, what's the word? Oh man. When you combine the ability when you have the ability to have power plus like elite touch and feel, that's a recipe for success. And that makes you very deadly, especially on a course like this where the fairways are very generous. And just so you know, Steve, I'm thinking the fairways are going to be more like 40 to 50 yards wide because it is a resort style course. So all the more reason for him to probably hit driver. That's why I'm going to go Patrick Rogers for a top 10. I
love it. I dig it. By the way, I'm just going through the odds board. Mike Weir right now to win is 700 to 1, 7,000 to 1. So if you want to take Mike Weir for that course record, it's an interesting, fun situation. My gimme pick this week. There's a couple of names that are new on tour, as I mentioned earlier, who have received their tour cards. They're not going to be my pick here. However, I do really like Matt McCarty to make the cut in his first ever PGA Tour event. He's plus 400 to make the cut. He's kind of a long shot at this sort of event because we don't know enough about him yet. But I like McCarty. However, I'm going to go with Emiliano Grillo for a top 20 this week. It's been a really strong second half of the year for Grillo, and it's showing a lot now in the FedEx Fall as he's working to get towards that elevated event stature. I do like Grillo here. Fits the mold well, putts it really well as of late. Basically put himself into a top 20 this week after a really rough driving game at the Sanderson Farm. If he can keep the driver straight, it'll be a good week for Grillo. Top 20 there. Your winner at the inaugural Black Desert Championship. Where are you going with this?
I'm going with the guy who I think we both picked him to win last week, Keith Mitchell.
We actually both picked Mac Hughes to win, but yes, Keith Mitchell.
Sorry, yep, I'm going to go with Keith Mitchell still. So, yep, that's what I'm going with. I think he's due. Yep.
I'm going with a West Coast dominant golfer who I have never picked in the history of Beer Money, and I am happy to pick him now. He is 35 to 1 on the odds board. He is a native of Ogden, Utah, which is about 3 hours north of where the Black Desert is being held. He has been tremendous in the fall so far in his stroke gained approach, his accuracy. He's top 10 in every major statistical category that we want this week. I'm going to go with Patrick Fishburne to get his first career victory on the PGA Tour at the Black Desert. First time event, first time winner, home run play.
I have never heard of him. So
fuck yeah, that's what I like to hear. Patrick Fishburne, baby.
Sounds like an Oakland A already.
There are rich teams and there are poor teams.
And
And there's 50 feet of crap. Then there's us. How are you going to play? We need to replace someone with 120 RBIs, 35 home runs. First name, Scott Hatteberg.
Who? Exactly. Sounds like an Oakland A already.
Who's Fabio?
The shortstop.
Ugly girlfriend means no confidence. Patrick Fishburne he's my Scott Hatteberg. He's my Chad Bradford. He's my pick to win the Black Desert. I love it. Sounds like an Oakland A already.
Oh my God.
That movie is so quotable.
Oh, it's one of the best movies of all time.
The Yankees are paying you. That's what the Yankees think of you, David Justice. Well, the best quote though from that movie is it's when he goes to Scott Hatteberg's house, and I love Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt played the funniest Scott Hatteberg possible. He goes, I can barely even play catcher. He goes, it's easy. We're gonna put you at first base. Tell him how easy it is. Wash. It's incredibly hard to play first base. Scott Hatteberg, pick a machine.
It's not that hard, Scott. Tell him, Wash. It's incredibly hard.
He's like, I can barely even play catcher.
Like, you want to know something? So whenever people tell me like how difficult golf is, and how difficult it is to be a pro, and how difficult it is to make it on the PGA Tour, and blah 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 blah, I always use Billy Bean's line. I'm like, hey, anything worth doing in life is. That's literally I live by that line every single day. So yeah, what a great movie. But what a great week. An inaugural event. I think it is, like you said in the interview, we don't really have many of these inaugural events. And I just wanted to say, I think, unfortunately for the residents of St. George, I think it is, their paradise has been discovered. So there's going to be a lot more foot traffic moving forward because now it's going to be televised and everyone's going to want to move there. That being said, this event is going to have such a tremendous, I wanted to say this during the interview, but I did not want to cut Brian off just because he was rolling. This is going to have such a tremendous economic impact on the area. And I think that that's a fantastic thing. What they're doing for Utah Tech as well, what their goals are for the women's game, I think is phenomenal. So I think this event's going to be a home run. I wish I had asked. I wasn't even sure if he knew how many years they were how long the contract was for each tour.
I actually was reading into this. I think it's 3 or 4 years for the PGA and then 5 for the LPGA.
Okay. I was thinking probably 3 for the PGA. That sounds about right then. But yeah, what a great episode. Steve,
what a great episode. Absolutely awesome.
Fumbling words like he was
grammatical errors up and down.
Oh my God, it was terrible. You said that you were like,
I said speak.
You said Frankie Capin, a sexy pick or something. I'm just like, what is?
Yeah. He's a sexy pick for Rookie of the Year.
He is, but just the wordage that you've been using tonight is just something out of this world. And I'm proud. Hey, you're doing great. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. You're doing great.
You know what? Would you rather get a bullet to the head or 5 to the chest and bleed out?
You have to go view that part on YouTube.
As Paul DiPodesto said that, goes, are those my only 2 options? Peter Brand, aka Paul DiPodesto, aka the guy who was basically the first iteration of David Stearns, pre-David Stearns.
Oh, so funny.
And now is and now actually Paul DiPodesto was the guy who gave Deshaun Watson his contract in Cleveland. Fun fact. No. That was that lunatic owner in Cleveland. That was bad. Anyways, that's been episode 175 of the Get in the Hole podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on all of our socials at Get in the Hole Pod, on the Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And of course, be sure to leave a comment and a 5-star rating on our Spotify and Apple Podcast accounts. The engagement really helps with the overall growth of our show, as well as on YouTube at Underground PHI, where you can get your hands on all Underground Sports Philadelphia content, from lacrosse to soccer to, of course, our friends over in the golf game. For Ben Pirro, I'm Steve McAvoy. As Ben Pirro, as Billy Bean would also say, how can you not be romantic? Thanks for listening to Get in the Hole, the official golf podcast of Underground Sports Philadelphia. Catch us every week wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and be sure to like and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Get in the Hole Pod, and follow Underground Sports Philadelphia at Underground PHI. We'll see you next time, and remember, get in the hole!